Okay, let's talk about the perfect crime. I mean, a heist so audacious, so clean, that it becomes more than just a crime. It becomes a modern legend. Today, we're diving into one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries, the man they call D.B. Cooper. So let me ask you this. Could you really steal a fortune, jump out of a plane in the middle of the night, and just disappear? It sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood movie, right? A total fantasy. But what if I told you it actually happened?
Yep. Back in 1971, one man did exactly that, and in the process, he pulled off one of the most daring heists in American history and became a true legend.
And we're not talking about a crime of desperation here. $200,000 back then is more than $1.6 million today. That's a life-altering payday, and it points to a very, very well-planned operation.
So, let's set the scene. To understand this, we have to go back to that fateful holiday evening when the man disappeared and the mystery was born. The man was practically a ghost in a business suit. On November 24, 1971, a guy calling himself Dan Cooper boards Flight 305. He's quiet, he's polite, he orders a bourbon and soda. He's just another face in the crowd. Nobody had any idea he was about to make history.
And this is key. This wasn't some violent, chaotic act. No way. Every single move he made was precise, calm, and totally planned out. It was a heist pulled off with some seriously unnerving composure.
Think about how this all started, with these quiet words to a flight attendant. He didn't yell, he didn't make a scene, he just calmly passed her a note, opened his briefcase just enough for her to see what looked like dynamite, and just like that, he was in complete control.
And get this, his demands were incredibly specific. He didn't just ask for money and parachutes. He knew the exact flight conditions needed for a safe jump from a Boeing 727. This wasn't just some random guy. This was someone with a scary amount of knowledge about aviation.
For hours, this guy was in the driver's seat, but he stayed weirdly calm. He got his ransom, he got his parachutes, and then, and this is the part that baffled everyone, he let all 36 passengers go free before telling the pilots to take off again.
All right, so the plane's back in the air, he's got the money, and he's getting ready for his grand finale. This is the moment the story stops being a normal hijacking and really turns into pure folklore.
She was the last person to ever see him. Can you imagine that? As she walked to the cockpit, she saw him back there, just tying the heavy bag of money around his waist. He was focused, he was calm, and he was totally alone with his plan. Then, at 8:13 p.m., the pilots feel this sudden jolt. The tail of the plane lurches up, and they knew that was the moment. D.B. Cooper and his $200,000 had just jumped out of the plane into a freezing, stormy, pitch-black night over the forests of Washington. And just like that, he was gone, vanished. But the search for who he was and where he went, well, that was just getting started. It kicked off one of the longest and most intense manhunts in FBI history.
You know, for a guy who was so meticulous, he wasn't perfect. He left a few things behind. And that simple, black, clip-on tie from JCPenney, that would become the single most important piece of evidence, holding secrets that would haunt investigators for decades.
For almost a decade, the trail was ice cold. Nothing. Then, out of nowhere, these two clues pop up. A piece of the plane is found right where they thought he jumped, and then the money. But these finds didn't solve anything. They just made the whole mystery even deeper.
So this 8-year-old kid finds a rotting stack of $20 bills on a riverbank. It was Cooper's money, no doubt about it. But how did it get there? The location made no sense. It just created way more questions than it answered.
So with so few clues and so many unanswered questions, the story of D.B. Cooper started to change. It went from being an active criminal case to a piece of modern American folklore.
The biggest debate has always been, did he survive? For years, the FBI insisted it was a suicide mission. I mean, he was in a business suit jumping into a freezing storm over brutal wilderness. But he was so calm, so prepared. And what's really interesting is that several copycats later on actually did survive similar jumps, proving it wasn't totally impossible. For 45 years, the FBI chased down over 1,000 leads. They used incredible new technology on that tie he left behind. And in the end, nothing. Not a single definitive match. So in 2016, they finally just suspended the active case.
But Cooper did leave behind one very real legacy. It's a piece of hardware called the Cooper vane.
Because of what he did, they had to redesign the plane he jumped from, adding this little device to make sure no one could ever pull off the exact same stunt again.
So yeah, the FBI's file on D.B. Cooper might be closed, but let's be honest, the mystery is more alive than ever. He got away with it. He became a ghost in the system and left behind the only unsolved air piracy in commercial aviation history.
And that's the question that's captivated people for over 50 years. Who was the man in the suit? Is his secret buried out there in the woods? He bought a one-way ticket and found a permanent home in American legend, leaving all of us to wonder if we'll ever really know the truth.